morning, Year 1, and welcome to today's English lesson. So today we're going to be looking at the features of poems, and we're going to be looking at the 3 poems we've read earlier in the week, and then you're going to have a special task to do with your grown-up on Robot Rumpus. But before that, we're going to be looking at the un sound, the un prefix, what it does, and we're going to have a look at some words that we can put through a special machine that changes them and changes their meaning. So you need your whiteboard and whiteboard pen, and when you're ready, start the video again. Right, welcome back, Year 1. So today, before we start, I want you to think about what a prefix does. Try to explain to your grown-up. Grown-ups pause the video until they've explained what a prefix does. That's right, Year 1. Prefix is a grapheme string that is added to the start of the word. It changes the word's meaning. So now have a think about, what does the prefix un do? What does the prefix un do? So prefix un makes the word mean the opposite. So for example, today, unreal means something isn't real, something's not real. So are you ready to go on to the next part of the lesson? Okay, so the nice robots at Twinkle have made this un machine. And what our robots would like you to do is work out what would happen if we put the following words, pleasant, true, cover, and unusual, usual, through our un machine. And they've also got a big challenge. Can you think of any other words you could put into the machine? So what we're going to do is I'm going to click on the words in just a moment, and you're going to write down. You're going to see whether you've managed to add un correctly. So grown-ups, you may want to do this one at a time, or you may prefer to do all 4 at once and then write down any other un words that you and your child can think of. Okay, when you're ready, first word, pleasant, goes into the machine and comes out as unpleasant. Bet you got that one right. True goes into the machine and comes out as untrue. Cover goes through the machine and comes out as uncover. And then the last one, usual, goes through the machine.
Did you just get a code?
And comes out unusual. Okay, now these words, the robot's been tampering with their machine, and this time they've managed to end up with the words with the prefix on, but they don't quite know what the words meant originally. So can you help them? Write down the words without the prefix. So when you're ready, grown-ups, start the tape again. So the first word, unclean. It's clean. Well done. Next word, unplug, is plug. Did you get that? Next word, unreal, becomes real. And then the last word, unknot, becomes not. Brilliant. Now, the robots, I've got one last challenge for you. Can you write a sentence using any of the un words? Or even any of the words before they're changed. You can choose from both the pages by rewinding the video. And grown-ups, when you're ready, start the tape again and we'll be on to the main part of the lesson. Welcome back, Year 1. Now today we're going to be looking at the 3 poems, and we're going to be looking at different features. The first feature we're going to be looking at is repeated words or phrases and repeated sounds. So if you can hear the same sound through it, then that would count, but mostly we're looking at repeated words. So I'm going to show you how to do it with the first poem, and then I want you to have a go with your grown-up at writing down the words that are repeated in the second poem, which is this section, and the third poem, which is Robot Contractions. Okay, so when you're ready, we're going to get going. So, I'm a little robot, I feel great. When I touch my leg, I walk real straight. When I touch my shoulder, I spin around and when I touch my nose, I sit on the ground. So, first word I can see that's being repeated is the I. So, I'm a little robot, there's an I in that. I feel great. When I touch my love, I walk real straight. When I touch my shoulder, I spin around. And when I touch my nose, I sit on the ground. So do you see the way that the poet has used the same I word repeatedly to make the poem seem a bit different from a story? And there's also a second word, and you might want to write this down as well when you do it, or do it in a different colour highlighter if you've written out or printed the poem. We've got when and when again. So can you see how that's different to writing a story? Because it would be pretty boring if the story went, once upon a time, a boy walked with a dog. When he got to his house, he stopped and had a drink. When he finished his drink, he went back outside. And when he stopped playing outside, he went back inside. You see the way that it's boring in a story, but it's really good in a poem. So there's two more poems here to have a go at. I'm just going to show you what it means by repeating sounds in the second poem. So I'm going to do the first stanza. Now there isn't a lot of this. Repeating sounds is often called alliteration. So my robot must rate as my favourite toy, a wonderful whirring mechanical joy. And do you see the way that the poet has used the W sound for wonderful and whirring in there? So if you spot any words that start with the same sound, highlight them as well, or write them down as well, because obviously you may not be able to print off the poem. So just writing down the words is a good way of doing this. And over to you, grown-ups, for the second one, and I'll go through it in a moment. Okay, so in the second poem, we've got my robot must rate as my favourite toy. So my is repeated. And then we've got a wonderful whirling mechanical joy. My robot can talk, but he'd much rather sing or go to the park and play on the swings. My robot is silver and very astute. For instance, this week, he's learning the flute. My robot's adept at a number of tasks like doing my homework or folding my vests. My robot tells jokes which will tickle your side, or spin a good story, and much more besides. And with a small spanner I always keep handy, I unbolt his head and store my candy. Now obviously there's another word that is being repeated throughout this, which goes with my, and that's robot. So you may have done them together. And can you see again how this gives the poem shape and makes it feel different to a story? Okay, so the last one, which I want you to do now, is the robot contraction poem. Off you go, and when you're ready, I'll go through that one again. Right. Okay, so now let's look at the last poem. And the last poem has got one main repetition in the first stanza, and then a different repetition in the second stanza. So it's I'm a robot inventor, old and bent. I'll bang my metal and make a dent. I'd like to rest, but it's nearly done. Here's my robot, a super one. Then the second stanza is taken from the point of view of the robot. So it's we're his robots, tall and strong. We'll follow instructions all day long. We'd like to help you learn and play. If you'll have us, we're here to stay. And then there is one more word that's repeated, and I bet you can guess what that is. That's right, it's robot or robots. So we've got robot in the first line, robot in the last line, and then we've got robots in the first line of the second stanza. So that's one feature of poem. Okay, so another feature of poems, and this is probably the one you know, is rhyming words. So this time I'm only going to do the first poem, first half of the first poem, and then you can get on and you can do the other ones. Rhyming words usually are at the end of a line or at the end of every other line, and they don't have to look the same, although they are sometimes look the same, and that's called an I rhyme. More often they sound the same, so you're going to be using your phonics knowledge here. So, I'm a little robot, I feel great. When I touch my leg, I walk real straight. So I think you can probably hear the rhyme there, which is great and straight. Okay, so you have a go at the second half of this poem, and then we'll pick that one up, and then we'll do the same with the second poem and the third poem. Over to you. So grown-ups, pause the video, and you may want to pause it between each poem because I'm going to go through all three poems one at a time now. Okay, so how'd you do? When I touch my shoulder, I spin around. And when I touch my nose, I sit on the ground. Okay, in the second poem, it's a slightly different rhyming pattern, so I'm going to use a different colour. My robot must rate as my favourite toy, a wonderful whirring mechanical joy. So toy and joy. My robot can talk, but he'd much rather sing or go to the park and play on the swings. So sing and swing. Swings, it's cheating a little bit, but it still rhymes. My robot is silver and very astute. For instance, this week he was learning the flute. So astute and flute. My robot's adept at a number of tests, like doing my homework or folding my vests. My robot tells jokes that will tickle your sides, or spin a good story, and much more besides. And with a small spanner I always keep handy, I unbolt his head and to store all my candy. Now you can see that these rhymes are at the end of every line, and they're actually called rhyming couplets. And when you're a lot older, you'll find when you're studying Shakespeare that whenever he finishes a scene, he will finish with a rhyming couplet. Okay, so the final poem has the same rhyming couplet pattern. So I bet you can spot these without me even reading them. Well done. Okay, so that's rhyming patterns. That's the second feature of a poem. And now we're going to go on to the final feature. Now the final feature is layout. Poems look different to stories. So what's the first thing we notice that's different? Well, I would say it's the fact that every single line starts with a capital, because remember, when we write our stories, we can only use capitals when there's been a full stop or when it's a name. Now in the second poem, there's also a second feature. The poem is written in what's called stanzas. Now stanzas are the correct term in poetry for verses in songs. So there are 3 stanzas in this second one. I'm just going to draw a box around the first stanza so you understand what I'm talking about. And there's 2 more stanzas there. And then in the third poem, have a think about how many stanzas there are. So those are the main features of layout you're looking for. So I'm going to let you have a go at that. Draw a box, either say how many stanzas there are if you can't print this, or draw around them if you manage to. Okay, over to you again. Okay, so in the second poem, there are 3 stanzas, so you've ended up with a stanza 1, stanza 2, and stanza 3. And then also, there is the same pattern of capital letters at the start of each line. So we've got my, a, my, or, my, for, my, like my, or, and, I. And now in the third poem, exactly the same again. You've got two stanzas. Stanza 1. Sorry about that, it's not very neat, is it? I'll do that again. And stanza 2. And you can almost certainly work out where the capitals are going to be. That's right, it's I, w, 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 I. Okay. So well done. That's the 3 main features of poems we're going to be looking at. So finally, your task today is going to be to listen to the Robot Rumpus poem. Again, I'll put a link underneath this video, but you could always go back to yesterday's otherwise. And then you're going to create a thought web about what features Robot Rumpus has. So the way a thought web works is we'd start off with the name of the poem in the middle. Now I'm going to do this with Robot Contractions, not in highlighter pen though. Sorry about that. So Robot Contractions, I put the name in the middle. You might want to draw a picture with it. Then you draw robot arms from the front, from the central word. So, and those robot arms are going to be rhyming words, repetition, which covers alliteration, which is the same sound, and repetition of the words, which is the same word, and then layout. Now, layout with Robot Rumpus could be completely different. You might want to draw some of the different ways that the poet lays out the words. So, in Robot Contractions, the rhyming words are, let's just flick back and have a look, bent and dent. So what I would like to do now is I would have examples. I'd have examples coming off. So bent, comma, dent is one example. Done. One is another example, and you keep doing them off. Repetition, I'd have I, and I'd also have we. And the layout, I put there's 2 stanzas. I'm going to spell stanzas for you. If you want to use verses, that's okay, but stanzas is the correct English term. And also, I'd put capitals. And I could give examples of those by putting I'm, I'll, etc. And that's what a thought web looks like. So can't wait to see how well you do this. If any of you can send in photos to our home learners email address of your finished work, that would be amazing. Okay, and that's the end of this week's English. I hope you've enjoyed it. We'll be starting something. We'll be carrying on with poems after the weekend, but have a good time and keep safe.